Minister Shanmugam.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, sir. I thank the members who have spoken, and I think the collective position of this House is clear. Hate speech impacts racial, religious harmony, and members agree generally, dealing with hate speech, we have to intervene early and decisively. On offensive speech that may not be considered hate speech, members agree that we need to have restrictions. Offensive speech can segue into hate speech, can overlap, and if we allow offensive speech into religion, politics, media, entertainment, then the tone and texture of public discourse will change. Giving offense will be normalized. I think there is broad support based on the speeches for the approach that I had outlined, and that is very heartening that government MPs, opposition, and MPs broadly agree to these principles. Let me now try and deal with the specific questions. Mr. Pritam Singh asked some questions on the processes between IMDA and MHA. I've explained that in some detail in my opening speech. IMDA checked with MHA on security considerations. MHA withdrew its objections, as I explained earlier. A few days later, I think 2 days later, MHA gave advice to cancel. And I've explained that also in at quite some length just earlier. He also asked about the reasons for cancellation of the concert. That again, I don't think he wants me to go into the detail that I've given in my opening speech. I think member broadly agrees with the principle, but he had a question on the cancellation of Waten specifically. He accepted that he wasn't aware of the opposition of mainstream Christian viewpoint. That was an important point. And now that I've explained that to him, I think he would appreciate that. And in turn, that is relevant for the broader security considerations and assessment as well, in the way that I explained in my opening speech. And I think member will accept that it then becomes a question of judgment. Mr. Singh also made some comparisons with bans in the past. I think in all of these things, the population, the reactions are not dynamic. The population itself is not dynamic, is dynamic, and the reactions change over periods of time. And we have to assess it with the facts we have and not be wishful about what it was or what it might be. So population, reactions, specific bans, time, these are all relevant considerations. But you've got to make an honest assessment based on all of those with the reactions that you have, whether it's mainstream reaction and how it would impact on specific security situations as well as the broader security considerations. Member asked about future applications in general. I have explained the framework. There is no change in IMDA's framework on content regulation. It has worked very well so far. They have had to apply it, and they've applied it in all these years. There is also no change in MHA's approach to these issues. IMDA, in fact, has to make a series of decisions, tough calls, on a broad variety of issues going well beyond the security issues. Every day, they make these calls. In fact, I would say security, stricto sensu, is in fact the easier issue compared with the kind of issues IMDA has got to deal with when faced with any kind of application. We, MHA, have a narrower focus. We give our views to MCI. We had not anticipated the subsequent developments. And when we assessed them, I've explained, both ministries worked together. And that's how this government works. And it's not as if MCI wanted to proceed in any event or that it was or is unaware of security considerations. Often MCI itself makes that call. But here, it's understandable, MHA, our agency's primary job is we keep in touch, close touch with the religious communities, the leaders, picked up on the mainstream Christian opinion. within a day or so and made the security call and discussed it with MCI. I would add that this doesn't mean there is any general ban on black metal groups. I think that was a point either member asked or sort of impliedly asked. Now let me turn to Mr. Murali Pillai. He asked how to deprive commercial entities from making money and spreading hate speech. I think the points you made are valid. They need to be considered. And I think there were specific points on MRHA and ISA and the extent of government powers. I would say it has worked well so far. Government's exercise of power has been understood, and the constraints on government's exercise of power and safeguards in the legislation as well as in the Constitution. Ms. Denise Poir asked what constitutes offensive speech. I've explained that earlier. Disagreements, arguments on public issues, we do not intervene. WhatsApp and other platforms, I think these are legitimate questions. I cannot tell you that I have all the answers on those issues, but we'll have to deal with them. Enforcement, she asked, existing legislation and how would we fairly debate the approach. I think, as I explained, the purpose of this debate is not to enforce something specifically. It is to set out the approach, clarify our approach, hear MPs again, have it debated. That's what this House is for. And then, hopefully with that, the population will also understand what the people's representatives are saying here and what kind of approach we take. Mr. D'Souza, Senior Parliamentary Secretary Schweling, Satyandi, Ms. Pereira, Dr. Lee, SPS Faisal, Mr. Sia Kian Peng. We note their comments, I think broadly supportive. They talked about how hate speech travels, how it fuels violence. Dr. Lee spoke about her personal experiences. Likewise, we heard from the perspective of the minority community MPs. And Mr. Sia's points on being conservative when it comes to this specific area, I think accords with what our society believes in and hews to what the kind of approach that we have set out. I thank Professor Lim San San, very powerful examples, very vivid, and I thank her for the points that she made. We do need to tackle hate speech online. We are very far from tackling it today, I will say that. NMP Terence made a number of points on the space for arts. I understand the points. I don't think there is any disagreement on that there should be cultural vibrancy. Equally, I don't think member disagrees that we cannot allow hate speech and we must restrict offensive speech. Those are the questions I've raised for this debate. The points that he has raised more broadly on cultural vibrancy, I do not think affect the sort of narrower set of points I've made, and I don't think he disagrees with me. Dr. Thassera made a very thoughtful speech. I think he made the point, tracing through the history of certainly Islam and Christianity, that challenge is central to religion. Talked about Jesus, Martin Luther, the prophet, all led movements to change. Yes, no arguments on that. Insofar as that is relevant to today's debate, I would say I cannot and will not argue that, but certainly I think the state has no role in either fomenting such change within religion or supporting one side or the other. The second point he made, that religion should not impose its views on public policy, and I'll take the third point he made, that there has been a greater public assertion of faith. And I think both those points are valid, and in fact, a point that I think he is seeking to make, but perhaps didn't put it quite so directly, is that if you give in to these greater public assertions of faith, and if people of religion become extremely sensitive, then there is a risk of cutting down public space. And that might then affect on the secularity of government, not in the French sense, but in the sense that this government is secular. Now, so if we are to look at today's debate, I outlined one big risk in my opening speech, which can arise from hate speech and offensive speech and the fault lines and the kind of violence that can arise from it, and the deep splits between communities and religions or religious groups. Dr. Teixeira hinted at another big risk, which is not within the frame of today's debate, but I accept it as a risk of religion either trying to influence public policy or narrowing public policy space, and also something that he didn't quite mention but flows from it, a political leadership which is not strong enough to stand on its 2 feet and seeking favors from particular religious groups or specific religious groups happens in many countries, including in this region. That will lead to disaster, that will lead to a different type of government and public policy making, and it will not be a secular government. And the answer is you really need a strong political leadership which is fair between the different religions. People may be influenced by their religious outlook, but you do not make public policy based on a particular religious outlook or a particular standpoint of a particular religion. Then you will lose the faith of everybody else in society of a different outlook. That has never been our position. And as long as the government holds true to the values that have been set out, which I haven't gone into, then I think we will avoid that risk. It is a risk. It is a risk because so many governments, both in this region and outside, have gone down that route. It's one of the easiest ways to get votes. So we have to make sure that we seek understanding between the religious groups, mutual respect with religious leaders in a multi-religious society. But I would suggest to Dr. Teixeira that is perhaps a topic for another debate on another day, another ministerial statement, or the MP can move a motion. Minister Gray spoke about not just the rules, but also the need to make sure that we work very hard to make sure that our multi-religious approach works. So let me end this wrap up by reading to this House the moving words of Imam Gamal Fauda of the Al-Nur Mosque in Christchurch. The 22nd of March 2019, there was a memorial service in Christchurch, and this is what he said, and I'm not going to read all of it, just some passages. Brothers and sisters in Islam, brothers and sisters in humanity, brothers and sisters in New Zealand, last Friday I stood in this mosque and saw hatred and rage in the eyes of the terrorist who killed and martyred 50 people, wounded 42, and broke the hearts of millions around the world. Today, from the same place, I look out and see the love and compassion in the eyes of thousands of fellow New Zealanders, fellow human beings from across the globe that fill the hearts of millions more who are not with us physically, but in spirit. This terrorist sought to tear our nation apart with an evil ideology that has torn the world apart. But instead, we have shown that New Zealand is unbreakable and that the world can see in us an example of love and unity. We are brokenhearted, but we are not broken. We are alive. We are together. We are determined not to let anyone divide us. The number of people killed is not extraordinary, but the solidarity of New Zealand is extraordinary. To the families of the victims, your loved ones did not die in vain. Through them, the world will see the beauty of Islam and the beauty of our unity. We are here in our hundreds and thousands unified for one purpose, that hate will be undone and love will redeem us. Islamophobia kills. Islamophobia is real. It is a targeted campaign to influence people to dehumanize and irrationally fear Muslims, to fear what we wear, to fear the choice of food we eat, to fear the way we pray, and to fear the way we practice our faith. We call upon governments around the world, including New Zealand and the neighboring countries, to bring an end to hate speech and the politics of fear. Last week's event is proof and evidence to the entire world that terrorism has no color, has no race, and has no religion. We need to stamp out hate speech. We need to deal decisively with offensive speech so that someone will not have to make this eulogy in Singapore. But if it happens, I hope that we will be able to respond in the same way that New Zealanders have done. Thank you, sir.